2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. We are in the third leg of our AFC North tour, getting waxed by the Cleveland Browns here last week, going up to Pittsburgh and squeaking out an OT win. And here come the Cincinnati Bengals. No one knows more about the Cincinnati Bengals than this guy, even though Tony Conigliaro is always the face of his Twitter. He is Geoff Hobson, CIN, and he is not a sinner, he's a saint, and a Red Sox fan out in Bengal land where he's been covering the Bengals for newspapers and now with Bengals.com for the better part of a decade and a half. And my pal through Marvin Lewis as well as the Queen City. Boy, times are tough in Cincinnati for football right now, Hobby. I know this has been a difficult transition out there, huh?
Yeah, it's sure different, Nestor. It's been the last thing they thought would happen would be this, an 0-5 start. So it's been a tough beginning for the Zach Taylor era. I know. I keep telling them, Sam Weiss lost his first 5. Marvin lost his first 3. Both those guys finished 8-8, but they got some ground to make up. They got a tough one, of course, at your place on Sunday.
Well, tell me about Zach. I mean, let's start with this because the beginning's so different, right? I mean, we've gone from Ozzie to Eric here. We've had John. I remember the transition from Billick to Harbaugh was just dramatic. I mean, and you've been around a bunch of this, right? Like, it's always dramatic, but you wonder what's going to happen and the way things have been done. And look, Marvin never won there, and maybe he'll never be given his due around the league. And, he can be a pinata because he never won a Super Bowl in Cincinnati. But certainly you were there to see what he represented, and now he's gone. And, the new guy needs to figure it all out. And, Jay Gruden never figured it out in Washington, right? I mean, it never gets figured out for some guys. But give me a little background on him because I know he comes from great pedigree, and he was very well thought of by Marvin too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Marvin, I think Marvin will always be held in high esteem around here, even though he didn't win. Even though he didn't win a playoff game, he got there 7 times, which was 7 times in his 16 years, which was the same number of times he went to the playoffs before he got here. And you know what the '90s were like, so Marvin took this franchise where it had never been. In about 25 years. So he's looked upon, even though it got a little bit ugly at the end, he's going to be one of the Bengals greats. Zach comes the biggest difference. The biggest difference is Zach and Marvin just flat out come from different eras. I mean, Marvin's 60 and Zach's 36, and that's the difference right there. I mean, Zach grew up in a different NFL than Marvin did, and I think he's like you said, he's trying to feel his way around. He hasn't. He's got no luck at all when it comes to injuries. He's got no AJ Green. He was playing his 4th left tackle for most of the game on Sunday, and it's been a grind. He was down. Didn't have Green, didn't have John Ross as 2 of his 3 top receivers, and then Alex Erickson got hurt in the first 20 minutes on Sunday. So he hasn't had a hell of a lot of luck. But I think the big difference is just he's an offensive guy. Marvin was a defensive guy, and he's calling his plays, and he's calling the plays. I think there's probably a period of adjustment there, where he's also coaching the team and he's also running the offense. So, for a young guy, that's a lot on his plate. So, and I think you said it, directly about, there was a big change with Harbaugh and Billick. There wasn't that big of a change probably with Ozzie and DeCosta, just because DeCosta, cut his teeth with Ozzie. But I think from a coaching standpoint, you got to realize what this organization did. They ripped up their entire coaching staff. I mean, it's the biggest change they've ever had, and that is.
But the players are the same in a lot of cases, right? Like, I mean, I look down and I see Mixon and Boyd and Eifert and Dalton and Atkins and Vigil and Kirkpatrick. I mean, I see a lot of the same players, but into this system now at 0-5, the offensive line gets talked about so much, right? And you had some consistency, and I see Whitworth running around out in L.A. now, right? That's really been the problem. At the heart of it is the offensive line hasn't been right in a couple of years, right?
Yeah, it's always, when Andy Dalton got hurt, when he first broke his thumb in 2015, his career record, I think, was something like 50-24-1. He's 11 games under 500 since. And the biggest impact has been, his receivers have Eifert's been hurt, Marvin Jones and Mo Sadu left, and then, on the offensive line, the two guys they drafted at the top of the draft in 2015, Boyhe and Fisher, simply didn't work out. If you want in a nutshell, the heart of your team is your offensive line, and when that's not right, you're not going to be right. And they really thought. I think they've got a bunch of solid guys that are smart. They give you everything they got, and it was really a tough injury when they lost their first round pick, Jonah Williams. That's a tough thing to take out of there. Your left tackle. He's gone, and then their backup left tackle, Cordy Glenn, he hasn't played in 2 months. So that's when you're trying to revamp a line, to get those two injuries at left tackle, that's tough.
The 0-5 Cincinnati Bengals come to Baltimore. Geoff Hobson's been my friend for a long, long time, back covering the Bengals at newspapers, now at Bengals. How many years at Bengals.com for you? 16, 17, something like that?
This is the 20th season, man.
20th? Wow.
Yeah.
Predates my mayor, predates Marvin, for crying out loud. And the Bengals committee. So for the rest of the division, and seeing that the Bengals are 0-5, seeing that the Steelers are now onto their third-string quarterback, and we saw them the other day in overtime, watching the Browns get beaten up on Monday night, it feels like it's going to be the Browns or the Ravens, right? Like that, but it doesn't feel like anything certain around here, and it certainly doesn't feel like the Ravens should be full of confidence in themselves right now after losing Tony Jefferson. I mean, it feels like 8-8, 9-7 might win this division, Hobby.
I've been saying it all year. I said that at the end of last year. That division up there, 8-8 could win it. And at that point, I give the edge to Baltimore just because Harbaugh. I think Harbaugh wins so many different ways. He wins so many different ways with so many different teams. If you get an even AFC North, he's a tough guy to beat. And they'll be tough to beat. But AJ Green's going to be back in a couple of weeks. Can they get hot? Who knows? I do think this thing is a long way to being decided. I mean, they gotta. If the Bengals are going to win the division, they have to win on Sunday. But I do think it is I do think whoever has the best December is going to win this thing because it's right now it's still there for the asking, and we're there in mid-October.
Hobby, for you with A.J. Green coming back, you've mentioned that. What else is sort of on the horizon? Like, give me a little bit of a primer on who are the best players on the Bengals at 5 weeks into this. We've asked this about the Ravens. Like Marlon Humphrey was running around taking all sorts of gambles early in the game, makes the big play, was the team MVP last year. I'd have to say to you, our best player is still our kicker. You know what I mean? And I would say Marlon Humphrey's right there. I think Ronnie Stanley's kind of come into his own. Certainly Lamar is flashed, but he's not Tom Brady. He's not the best quarterback in the NFL. He's just an interesting one at this point. But for the Bengals, who's their best player? I mean, I look at the Atkins and the Dunlops, and I think these guys were dominant players at one point. What are we seeing from these guys now?
Well, the MVP on this team right now is Tyler Boyd. You guys know that name all too well, I think, from 2 years ago. Since he caught that ball on the last snap of 2017, he's developed into a hell of a player. Coming off a 1,000-yard season, right now he's on pace to catch 118 balls. So he's been terrific. He's been their big guy. Gino and Dunlap, it's the sack numbers aren't there. They've had one sack. They went up to Seattle. They had four sacks up there in the opener. They've had two since, so they've really struggled there. To me, that's a product of they just can't stop the run. And if you can't stop the run, you certainly can't rush the passer. So, Gino and Carlos really haven't had those, uh, haven't been a lot of third and longs for those guys. And so, that gets back to stopping and running. That's what, what I think Lamar's first NFL start was against these guys on November 18th. And Bengals lost that game 24-21 because the Ravens had the ball for 38 minutes. And Lamar and the running back chewed them up. I think that's the first game in history where two rookie running backs had to rush for 100 yards for the same team. So, and Lamar looks like he's doing the same kind of stuff, and these guys are coming off playing a similar quarterback. And Kyler Murray, if I'm not mistaken, last year they gave up 267 rushing yards to Baltimore, and last week it was 266, and that's just not going to be able to, they just can't let that stuff happen because, they can't unleash Cheetah and Carlos giving up, 5 yards a run.
It hasn't been as bumper car-y this year, and I guess, the styles make the fights, and what we saw the Chargers do to Lamar Jackson last January, everybody had to sort of stew on that for 7 or 8 months. The first 5 games, it has looked much more like an RPO, but a very traditional drop back in certain cases. Lamar looks like he wants to throw the football. There are patterns being run, that don't look like magnets on the old, the old football game you plugged in. Because it looked like that last year. It has certainly gotten more sophisticated. It looks more like a college offense than a Navy offense, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, that's what I think. That's where the game's headed. Nestor, that's what the Bengals just played here on Sunday. That was a college offense. Now they changed up, and that's been a problem for this Bengals defense. Now Arizona, they run those 4 wides. They were down 2 receivers, so they ran more. They ran more 12 personnel. They used their tight end more than they ever had, and but they still were. They're still spread it out and let Murray go. And it's a college deal now. 2 weeks ago in Pittsburgh, Mason Rudolph was making his second NFL start. The Steelers, not really known for zone reads and all that and motions, killed the Bengals with zone reads and motions. So,
well, he passed the ball 23 times, but 15 of them were handoffs, literally, right?
Correct. That's right. That's how you get on 120. I mean, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant way to do it. I mean, and I think that's what. I think the guys who are coaching the Baltimore offense are really smart guys who are going to protect him, and not expose him. And they're the Bengals are expecting to get a lot of smash mouth running game with Lamar going off play action and fool with them on the edge. So I think. Lou Anarumo, the Bengals defensive coordinator, said it best yesterday. He said it's a copycat league, and that's Bengals have had trouble with these with the perimeter runs and the jet sweeps and the motions and people hurting them on the outside, and they're not stupid. They know what Baltimore's going to give them on Sunday.
Geoff Hobson is here. You can find him, senior writer at Bengals.com. He's also out on Twitter with a lovely picture of a Sports Illustrated cover of Tony Conigliaro in The Impossible Dream and all that good stuff. Now that you've won some championships, and does it ever get easier to watch the Yankees play in October when you're not a part of it as a Red Sox fan, Hobby?
Just make a decision to not watch it at all. Turn it off. I don't want to see the pinstripes in the postseason. I'll read about it in the history books.
Yeah, I've said this earlier this week. I've had baseball, and some days there have been 4 games, right? So, it's on, background music. But when, the World Cup is on, I watch it. When NCAA basketball's on all day long in March, I sort of keep an eye on it. These baseball games, man, you talk about football being slow and, we've got all these timeouts and stuff. Man, 14 hours of wall-to-wall baseball with the Rays and the Cardinals and the Braves. Other than seeing Nick Markakis, other than seeing old Orioles run around, I don't have a dog in the fight, you know what I mean, except rooting against the Yankees, I guess, right?
Well, it is easier on the stress level,
Well, we lost 108 games this year, so you have to tell me there's no stress involved with the Orioles other than whether the franchise is staying here or not. So, and Cincinnati's not going to steal our franchise. I'm not worried about y'all.
Well, I told you, I grew up watching. First thing I ever learned about baseball was what did Baltimore do? Because they were always in first place for the first 6 years, 7 years I followed baseball. So
we've come a long way, Hobby. We'll see you on Sunday. Bring me some chili dogs or something, all right?
Sounds good. That's to look forward to seeing you.
You got it. Geoff Hobson joining us here from Bengals.com, giving us the lowdown on the 0-5 Bengals, and A.J. Green not practicing this week. He's not going to play this week as well. We're going to be down at the stadium celebrating my birthday on Tuesday, right? My birthday's Monday, but we're going to celebrate on Tuesday. Greenmount Station will be out with Bradley Bozeman on Tuesday night. We'll be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry, also talking about his anti-bullying efforts and his wife and their Halloween event that they're having out at Woodhome. We'll be telling you all about that as well. You can find us out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Baltimore positive, percolating. Going to be back down at Fadley's this week eating crab cakes, maybe some fried fish sandwiches. That's what I had last week. We're going to be doing that with Bill Ferguson, talking about the future of Baltimore and Baltimore positive. Calvin Ball, John Sarbanes, J.M. Shapiro talking about Baltimore homecoming, as well as Ben Carden, all out on our YouTube WNSTV channel. Soon to be on Baltimore Positive, and soon to be here at WNST.net, AM 1570 at WNST Towson, Baltimore, where we never stop talking Baltimore sports.